Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. In this video, I want to give you a skill set, general skill set for studying quick video. I want to show you one of the techniques that could be pretty helpful. And it always comes down to the same thing. I hear students asking me, it's so much information. You got this huge textbook, so to speak. And just want to give you a little general sort of study tip to help when dealing with a lot of information like you're getting in the ACE textbook. So that's what the video is going to be about. If you're needing just more general concepts and ideas on how to study because you're overwhelmed, then this video is for you. Now, first and foremost, I will say this, that it's the textbook itself, it's the editor, it's the publisher, it's the way they put it together that can either make this a challenge for you when you're studying the materials, or they can make it a little bit easier for you. I'm not saying ACE is good or bad. They just put it together in a way that requires you to be smart in how you access the information. Keep in mind, from a study skill perspective, your ability to memorize information and retain that information as you build it up, build it up, build it up until you get to take your exam is the ultimate goal. Whatever you're going to do afterwards, from a training perspective, you can always refer back to the book for particular skills or whatever the case is. But your main goal, first and foremost, is not to, quote, learn how to train people. That's not what the textbook is there for. I know that sounds crazy. Write your comments in the comment section below, absolutely. But that's not your main goal. Your main goal is to memorize enough information to be able to deal with the questions they're going to ask you on the certification exam and pass the exam. It's your main goal, because at that point, now you can take a deep breath and go back, access, and really start to learn, learn the techniques that ACE provides you here, especially when it comes to assessments, which is what they're pretty good at giving you information on. So with that in mind, your goal is not to go through and literally memorize every single word, sentence in the textbook. That's insane. Please don't do that. Be way more efficient with your time. It shouldn't take you more than a month or 2 months, perhaps maybe 3 months at 1 or 2 hours per day, 10 hours per week of study to get through the material enough, review it, do the practice exams, and then sit for the exam and hopefully pass it. So with that said, here is a basic rule of thumb with their particular textbook. The editor, the publisher, the people that put all this together helped you in one way, one initial way, which was they, at the beginning of each chapter, gave you a simple, basic breakdown summary or heading titles. And that's how I normally access when textbooks are written like this, where they don't have specific study guides, study questions, or their summaries in the back of the chapter are not significant enough. You're basically on your own to take notes. I'm always looking for something that gives me a basic summary, and that's what ACE has done for you. In other words, that's what the guys that put this book together, they said, let's at least give them something, right? And so every chapter begins with the chapter heading, and then it says in this chapter. Now, I'm going to just show you chapter 1. Every chapter is basically the same when it comes to this. Now, I'm not going to give you targeted study tools right in this particular video right now. I'm just showing you the general overview to take some of the frustration out of opening up this textbook and going, oh my God, how am I going to memorize all of this? Stop, slow down. Your brain can handle it. You just got to be strategic about how you do this. And so the first way that you generally engage the material is through this first part in the ACE textbook, looking at in this chapter, you have a bolded heading title, and stay with me here because I'm on chapter 1, page 54, essentially page 3. It doesn't say it. But you have these bolded titles, right? And underneath the bolded titles, you have subheadings, basically. And each of those subheadings you are going to find inside the chapter itself. So again, I'm just going to use chapter 1. Every chapter has it. In bold, you have the ACE personal trainer certification, and then you have defining, right? So there's your heading title. And by the way, this is important because this is what you're writing down when you do your initial study or your initial run through. This is what you read, write, and recite, or you write this down on a sheet of paper. So chapter 1 on your notepad or however you're doing this, and then boom, at the top, the ACE personal trainer certification. That's your main heading title. And now you've got these subheadings that you can do your summaries underneath. And now boom, defining scope of practice. Scope of practice for ACE, blah, blah, blah. Skill, knowledge, skills, blah, professional responsibilities and ethics. So that's one area. Now watch, if I go into chapter 1, health benefits, there's table 1. Okay, I'm going to now find that. There it is, page 10. That's my ACE personal trainer certification. So there it is. And it's in, what color is that? Let's just say red, dark red, right? So that heading title, that's in bold, is in red in your chapter, and that starts on, in this case, page 10. And now the subheadings, defining scope of practice for ACE certified trainers. Now you can see each of these that are not bolded on your initial chapter page. Those guys are bolded at the top, and you can see they're going to go through the entire chapter. The healthcare continuum is the next main heading title. That's in bold. It would be then in red when you open up the chapter. And that's how you can begin this chapter study. They are giving you basic heading and subheading titles that you can now, that's how you can access or compartmentalize the information in each chapter. All that, by the way, all that's doing for you is giving you some basic strategies to provide some linearity to your studying. In other words, don't read, please, folks. I mean, you do what you're going to do, of course, but please don't be reading this like, like a novel and reading everything and then highlighting. By the way, if you want me to do a video on highlighting, it will literally take 5 seconds. Don't do it. It's not an effective use of your time. Highlight, if you like to do highlighting, that's your business, but it's not an effective use of your time. And so my recommendation is go into the beginning of each of these chapters, set up a basic framework, a strategy, a linear way of beginning your summary of each of these headings and subheadings. So that's what ACE has done for you. They're basically telling you, here's the important grouping of information. And you should be able to define in scope of practice, be able to provide an effective summary of that particular subheading. Again, I'm not going to take this any further because now this specific strategies of how to memorize particular pieces of information is going to be specific to the chapter. And what I'm saying is that when you get to these subheadings, ACE now is going to provide you with tables, charts, figures, and bullet points inside the chapters themselves. I've done other videos on how to deal with that as well. You can go check them out. I will be doing redos on most of those in the coming weeks. But the point is that I'll just last part of this to tie it up. The examples here is that defining scope of practice on page 11. That is the first subheading, right? It's not bolded on this first page, but it's bolded a subheading on page 11. And here you have defining scope of practice. And basically, it's 2 paragraphs of information. You don't have an option in this case when it comes to how you study that particular subheading. ACE could have done a much better job of giving and providing bullet points for certain things, but other than that, they did a pretty good job on this edition. In this case, guess what you have to do? You have to read those 2 paragraphs and somehow or another get some summary or your own bullet points off of that. However, they do provide you a table. And that's one of the reasons why I recommend when you write this out, put it on a sheet of paper and deal with each of these on their own. You go through that particular chapter. If they provide you a table, they provide you bullet points, those are what you're honing in on because your ultimate goal is to summarize this. and memorize as much of the information as you can. And then you're going to take practice exams, of course. That's going to determine, basically how well you know the information. And so again, I just did this with chapter one because it's a general video. I'm not trying to go too in depth. Of course, you can get that level of in-depth information from a video if you get into the BDU certification course, where we have an entire course study on the ACE 16 chapter 6th edition textbook. We go way more in depth. Of course, there's quizzes and practice exams and everything else needed, but this gives you a more general understanding of, or a basic outline of how to deal with each of these chapters from a summarization perspective. So if it was helpful, please write that down in the, or at least write the word understand in the comments section below. Remember, if you haven't done so, to please subscribe to our channel. Just let us know how we can be of assistance. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Thanks.